Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Guess what question I'm going to ask?
Sir, will this be a Russian-associated question?
Yeah, and a deterrence-related question.
Yes, sir.
On December 23rd of 2016, the Congress passed the National Defense Authorization Act. In it was a section that required the Secretary of Defense to file a report on just the questions we've been talking about within 180 days, which was June of 2017, about the definition of a cyber attack, what would be the response. It talks about operational authorities, what operational authorities delegated to the United States Cyber Command for military cyber operations, how the law of war applies, the whole list. The purpose of the amendment, which was in the law, which is in the law, was to establish a clearly articulated doctrine of response in this kind of situation. I'm asking you as an operator, have you been tasked with drafting any part of the response to this requirement, which by the way is now 8 months late?
I've been part of the dialogue about responding, particularly on the operational piece of this. In terms of overall responsibility, this is the Office of the Secretary of Defense has the responsibility for.
But I'm asking, is anybody working on this? We're 8 months in. We're 8 months late now.
I apologize. I don't know the specifics of the timeline for this.
But were you given a deadline saying we need this by June of 2017?
I was part of this. I don't remember. I honestly don't remember if we were given it. Can I take this one as an action?
Yeah, but here's what's frustrating is here we are still talking about this issue when the Congress made a specific instruction to the Secretary of Defense, and the President, by the way, was then required to respond to the Congress within 180 days from that report that should have been coming in June of 2017, hasn't come. So, you know, we're way late, and we keep talking about this. You and I have been in probably a dozen or 15 hearings on this, and we don't seem to be any further ahead than we were before. And the problem is, you've testified today, and I think quite accurately and repeatedly, until we have some clearly articulated doctrine of response to these kind of attacks, they're going to continue. If all we do is try to patch our software, they're going to continue. And you know that, and I know that. What's it going to take? Is it going to take the destruction of the electric grid or the financial system in order for us to finally get to the point of taking this seriously?
Like I said, sir, there is an ongoing, and I'm participating in this. I just apologize. I just don't know the specific timelines.
Yeah, and I'm not. I understand you're an operational guy, but you have to understand you're the nearest thing we have to talk.
I know my role.
You're lucky enough to be here today, but this is serious business.
Yes, sir.
Well, let me turn to a little more specific question that I think underlines what we're talking about here. What would happen today if you, on your way back to your office, got a call and said the U.S. financial system has been taken down, all the computers on Wall Street are off, the markets are in chaos? I don't mean from a policy point of view. I'm talking about what would be the execution? Who's in charge? What would the results be?
So DHS would have overall responsibility for the provision of federal support in response to this. My role would be help to make sure I understand, number one, who is the actor? So can we identify who did this? Because if I'm going to respond, I have to know who I'm responding to or what I'm responding to. So one of my first questions as Cyber Command would be, let's make sure we understand what's the characterization of activity, who's the actor, what did they do?
Who would take the lead? Who's in charge?
How did the DHS would have overall responsibility?
DHS would be in charge?
Sure.
Have you war gamed this?
Yes, sir. In fact, I made it a broad reference that the finance sector, for example, the scenario you posture here, we've actually undertaken some very good tabletops specifically as I reached out to DHS and the financial sector, and look, we have got to get down to execution level work here, team. So
well, that's you've repeatedly talked about integration, and what worries me is that whether anyone is in charge. And I guess a follow-up is, do we have a serious red team war game process to be sure we're not surprised about how to react when one of these things happens?
I don't know if I'd use the phrase, do we have a serious red team? Is this part of our mission responsibility? Yes. Is this something we train and exercise against? Yes. Is this something we continually assess, looking for indicators of this type of activity before it occurs? Yes.
Well, I want to thank you. This may be our last time to talk about this, and thank you for your service and your straightforward response always. And just leave you, and you know, I hope as you leave this job, you will leave a memo behind that says, we are not adequately prepared. We need a doctrine. We need it to be publicly available. We need our adversaries to know that if they strike us in this realm, they're going to be struck back. And it may not be cyber, as you say, it may be a whole range of things. But right now, we have not done that. And I deeply hope that this is something you can take on as a kind of exit interview.
Sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.